What is air pollution?
Air pollution is the contamination of Earth's atmosphere at levels high enough to harm humans, others, organisms, or other materials. The major air pollutants are particulate matter, ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and lead. Primary air pollutants, including carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, and particulate matter, enter the atmosphere directly. Secondary air pollutants are harmful chemicals that form from other substances released into the atmosphere. Ozone and sulfur trioxide are examples of secondary air pollutants.
Where are the world's highest tides?
The Bay of Fundy, New Brunswick, Canada, has the world's highest tides. They average about 45 feet, 14 meters, high in the northern part of the bay, far surpassing the world average of 2.5 feet, 0.8 meter. The shape and size of the bay, as well as the increasing up bay shallowness, cause these very high tides.
Why do some biologists consider the insects the most successful group of animals?
With more than 1 million described species, and perhaps millions more not yet identified. Class Insecta is the most successful group of animals on Earth in terms of diversity. Geographic distribution, number of species, and number of individuals. More species of insects have been identified than of all other groups of animals combined. What insects lack in size, they make up for in sheer numbers. If we could weigh all the insects in the world, their weight would exceed that of all the remaining terrestrial animals. About 200 million insects are alive at any one time for each human.
What is unusual about cave moss?
Cave moss, Schistostega pennata, is a small plant with reflective, subspherical cells at its tips. These cells give off an eerie glow that is gold and green in color. In Japan, the plant has been the subject of numerous books, television shows, newspaper and magazine articles, and even an opera. There is a national monument to this species near the coast of Hokkaido, where it grows near a small cave.
Are both of the lungs identical?
The lungs are cone-shaped organs in the thoracic cavity. The right lung consists of 3 lobes, right superior lobe, right middle lobe, and right inferior lobe, while the left lung has only 2 lobes. left superior lobe and left inferior lobe, and is slightly smaller than the right lung. Although relatively large, each lung weighs only 1 pound, 2.2 kilograms.
How are birds related to dinosaurs?
Birds are essentially modified dinosaurs with feathers. Robert T. Bakker, 1945, and John H. Ostrom, 1928 to 2005, did extensive research on the relationship between birds and dinosaurs in the 1970s and concluded that the bony structure of small dinosaurs was very similar to Archaeopteryx. The first animal classified as a bird, but that dinosaur fossils showed no evidence of feathers. They proposed that birds and dinosaurs evolved from the same source.
Does lightning ever strike twice in the same place?
Lightning can and often does strike twice in the same place. Since lightning bolts head for the highest and most conductive point, that point often receives multiple strikes of lightning in the course of a storm. In fact, tall buildings, such as the Empire State Building in New York, can be struck several times during the same storm. During one storm, lightning struck the Empire State Building 12 times. Designed as a lightning rod for the surrounding area, the Empire State Building is struck by lightning about 100 times per year during multiple storms.
Why are some species more commonly used for genetic studies than others?
Species with a relatively small genome, with a short generation time from seed to seed, and that are adaptable to living in captivity are appealing as experimental organisms. Even though many of these species bear little physical resemblance to humans, they do share part of our genome and so can answer some of the questions we have about genetic inheritance and gene expression.
When was the first patent issued in the United States?
The first U.S. patent was granted on July 31, 1790 to Samuel Hopkins, 1743 to 1818. Of Philadelphia for making potash and pearl ash, a cleaning formula called potash. It was a key ingredient for making glass, dyeing fabrics, baking, making saltpeter for gunpowder, and most importantly for making soap.
Which state was the first to officially name a state bird?
In 1926, Kentucky officially named the cardinal as its state bird.
Which American states allow medical marijuana usage?
Since 1996, 15 states and the District of Columbia have passed laws allowing the use of marijuana for medical purposes. These include Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. Depending on the state, patients may possess between 1 ounce, Alaska, Montana, Nevada, to 24 ounces, Oregon, Washington, of usable marijuana and grow their own plants. States also vary on which diseases are approved for treatment using marijuana.
What are the 2 phases of breathing?
Breathing, or ventilation, is the process of moving air into and out of the lungs. The 2 phases are, 1, inspiration or inhalation, and 2, expiration or exhalation. Inspiration is the movement of air into the lungs, while expiration is the movement of air out of the lungs. The respiratory cycle consists of 1 inspiration followed by 1 expiration. The volume of air that enters or leaves during a single respiratory cycle is called the tidal volume. Tidal volume is typically 500 milliliters, meaning that 500 milliliters of air enters during inspiration and the same amount leaves during expiration.
What is the lightest known solid?
The lightest solid is silica aerogels, made of tiny spheres of bonded silicon and oxygen atoms linked together into long strands separated with air pockets. They appear almost like frozen wisps of smoke. They also have the lowest conductivity, lowest solid density, highest porosity, highest surface area, and the highest dielectric constant, giving them the potential of being used in many applications. Understandably, their use is not currently widespread due to the expense to create them and the difficulty in insulating capabilities will allow their use in place of fiberglass and polyurethane foam, significantly reducing global energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions.
What is the moon's tail that astronomers have discovered?
A glowing 15,000-mile, 24,000-kilometer, long tail of sodium atoms streams from the moon. The faint, orange glow of sodium cannot be seen by the naked eye, but it is detectable with the use of instruments. Astronomers are not certain of the source of these sodium atoms.
Which is the only bone that does not touch another bone?
The hyoid bone is the only bone that does not touch another bone. Located above the larynx, it supports the tongue and provides attachment. Sites for the muscles of the neck and pharynx used in speaking and swallowing. The hyoid is carefully examined when there is a suspicion of strangulation. Since it is often fractured from such trauma.
Which elements have the most isotopes?
The elements with the most isotopes, with 36 each, are xenon, Xe, with 9 stable isotopes. Identified from 1920 to 1922, and 27 radioactive isotopes, identified from 1939 to 1981, and cesium, Cs. With 1 stable isotope, identified in 1921, and 35 radioactive isotopes, identified from 1935 to 1983. The element with the fewest number of isotopes is hydrogen, H, with 3 isotopes, including 2 stable ones protium. Identified in 1920, and deuterium, often called heavy water, identified in 1931, and 1 radioactive isotope tritium. First identified in 1934, although not considered a radioactive isotope in 1939.
What is the Genesis rock?
The Genesis rock is a lunar rock brought to Earth by Apollo 15. It is approximately 4.15 billion years old, which is only 0.5 billion years younger than the generally accepted age of the Moon.
What is an irrational number?
Numbers that cannot be expressed as an exact ratio are called irrational numbers. Numbers that can be expressed as an exact ratio are called rational numbers. For instance, 1/2, 1/2, or 50% of something, is rational. However, 1.61803, cp. 3.14159, ti, 1.41421, \2, are irrational. History claims that Pythagoras in the 6th century BCE first used the term. When he discovered that the square root of 2 could not be expressed as a fraction.
What are the differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells?
Eukaryotic cells are much more complex than prokaryotic cells. Having compartmentalized interiors and membrane-bound organelles within their cytoplasm. The major feature of a eukaryotic cell is its membrane-bound nucleus, which compartmentalizes the activities of the genetic information from other types of cellular metabolism.
Why do people snore and how loud can snoring be?
Snoring is produced by vibrations of the soft palate, usually caused by any condition that hinders breathing through the nose. It is more common while sleeping on the back. Research has indicated that a snore can reach 69 decibels, as compared to 70 to 90 decibels for a pneumatic drill.
What is the Kyoto Protocol?
The Kyoto Protocol was an international summit held in Kyoto, Japan, in December 1997. Its goal was for governments around the world to reach an agreement regarding emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. The Kyoto Protocol called for the industrialized nations to reduce national emissions over the period 2008 to 2012 to 5% below the 1990 levels. The protocol covers these greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. Other chemicals such as hydrofluorocarbons, perfluorocarbons, and sulfur hexafluoride were to be added in subsequent years.
How did lead contribute to the fall of the Roman Empire?
Some believe Romans from the period around 150 BCE may have been victims of lead poisoning. Symptoms of lead poisoning include sterility, general weakness, apathy, mental retardation, and early death. The lead could have been ingested in water taken from lead-lined water pipes or from food cooked in their lead-lined cooking pots or from wine served in lead-lined goblets. Unaware of its dangers, some ancient Romans unwittingly used lead as a sweetening agent or medical treatment for diarrhea. Lead poisoning could have caused infertility in women, leading to a subsequent long-term decline in the birth rate of the Roman upper classes. The effect of this inadvertent toxic food additive on Roman history, however, is only speculative.
How did the quark get its name?
This theoretical particle, considered to be the fundamental unit of matter, was named by Murray Gell-Mann. 1929, an American theoretical physicist who was awarded the 1969 Nobel Prize in Physics. Its name was initially a playful tag that Gell-Mann invented, sounding something like quark. Later, Gell-Mann came across the line 3 quarks for master marks in James Joyce's 1882-1941, Finnegan's Wake, and the tag became known as a quark. There are 6 kinds or flavors: up, down, strange, charm, bottom, and top, of quarks, and each flavor has 3 varieties or colors: red, blue, and green. All 18 types have different electric charges, a basic characteristic of all elementary particles. 3 quarks form a proton, having 1 unit of positive electric charge. or a neutron, zero charge, and two quarks, a quark and an antiquark, form a meson. Like all known particles, a quark has its antimatter opposite, known as an antiquark, having the same mass but opposite charge.
What are Kuiper belt objects?
Kuiper belt objects, KBOs, are, as their name implies, objects that originate from or orbit in the Kuiper belt. Only one KBO was known for more than 60 years, Pluto. Many KBOs have been discovered since 1992, however. And the current estimate is that there are millions, if not billions, of KBOs. KBOs are basically comets without tails, icy dirt balls that have collected together over billions of years. If they get large enough, such as Pluto did, they evolve as other massive planet-like bodies do, forming dense cores that have a different physical composition than the mantle or crust above it. Most short-period comets, those with relatively short orbital times of a few years to a few centuries, are thought to originate from the Kuiper belt.
How does a bat catch flying insects in total darkness?
Bats use sound waves for communication and navigation. They emit supersonic radiation ranging from as low as 200 Hz to as high as 30,000 Hz. The sounds are emitted through the bat's nostrils or mouth and are aided by a complex flap structure to provide precise directivity to the radiation. Echo returns from the emissions allow a bat to pick out a tiny flying insect some distance ahead. Highly sensitive ears and an ability to maneuver with great agility enables many bats to fly around in a darkened cave, catching insects without fear of collision.
What caused the Chernobyl accident?
The worst nuclear power accident in history, which occurred at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the Ukraine, will affect, in one form or another, 20% of the republic's population, 2.2 million people. On April 26, 1986, at 1:23:40 a.m., during unauthorized experiments by the operators in which safety systems were deliberately circumvented in order to learn more about the plant's operation, one of the four receivers rapidly overheated and its water coolant flashed into steam. The hydrogen formed from the steam reacted with the graphite moderator to cause two major explosions and a fire. The explosions blew apart the 1,000-ton, 907 metric ton, lid of the reactor, and released radioactive debris high into the atmosphere. It is estimated that 50 tons of fuel went into the atmosphere. An additional 70 tons of fuel and 700 tons of radioactive reactor graphite settled in the vicinity of the damaged unit. Human error and design features, such as a positive void coefficient type of reactor, use of graphite in construction, and lack of a containment building, are generally cited as the causes of the accident. 31 people died from trying to stop the fires. More than 240 others sustained severe radiation sickness. Eventually 150,000 people living near the reactor were relocated, some of whom may never be allowed to return home. Fallout from the explosions, containing radioactive isotope cesium-137, was carried by the winds westward across Europe. The problems created by the Chernobyl disaster are overwhelming and continue today. Particularly troubling is the fact that by 1990 to 1991, a five-fold increase had occurred in the rate of thyroid cancers in children in Belarus. A significant rise in general morbidity has also taken place. Among children in the heaviest hit areas of Gomel and Mogilev.
Is lodestone a magnet?
Lodestone is a naturally occurring variety of magnetic iron oxide or magnetite. Lodestone is frequently called a natural magnet because it attracts iron objects and possesses polarity. It was used by early mariners to find magnetic north. Other names for lodestone are lodestone, leading stone, and Hercules stone.
Who devised one of the earliest systems for animal and plant classification?
The naming and organizing of the millions of species of plants and animals is frequently called taxonomy. Such classifications provide a basis for comparisons and generalizations. Carolus Linnaeus composed a classification system for two major groups, plants, 1753, and animals, 1758. He categorized the organisms by perceived physical differences and similarities. Every plant and animal was given two scientific names, binomial method, in Latin. One for the species and the other for the group or genus within the species. This system of nomenclature, naming, continues to be used today. Examples of binomial nomenclature include, Schistocerca americana, grasshopper, and Pinus strobus, white pine.
What parts of plants are used for spices?
Spices are aromatic seasonings derived from many different parts of plants including the bark, buds, fruit, roots, seeds, and stems.
What is a fuzzy search?
Fuzzy search is an inexact search that allows a user to search for data. that are similar to but not exactly the same as what he or she specifies. It can produce results when the exact spelling is unknown. Or it can help users obtain information that is loosely related to a topic.
When did the most severe earthquake in American history occur?
The New Madrid series of earthquakes, a series of quakes starting on December 16, 1811, and lasting until March 1812, is considered to be the most severe earthquake event in U.S. history. It shook more than two-thirds of the United States and was felt in Canada. It changed the level of land by as much as 20 feet, 6 meters. Altered the course of the Mississippi River, and created new lakes, such as Lake St. Francis west of the Mississippi and Reelfoot Lake in Tennessee. Because the area was so sparsely populated, no known loss of life occurred. Scientists agree that at least 3, and possibly 5, of the quakes had surface wave magnitudes of 8.0 or greater. The largest was probably a magnitude of 8.8, which is larger than any quake yet experienced in California.
What is a silicon chip?
A silicon chip is an almost pure piece of silicon, usually less than 1 centimeter square and about half a millimeter thick. It contains hundreds of thousands of miniaturized electronic circuit components, mainly transistors, packed and interconnected in layers beneath the surface. These components can perform control, logic, and memory functions. There is a grid of thin metallic strips on the surface of the chip. These wires are used for electrical connections to other devices. The silicon chip was developed independently by 2 researchers, Jack Kilby, 1923 to 2005, of Texas Instruments in 1958, and Robert Noyce, 1927 to 1990, of Fairchild Semiconductor in 1959. Jack Kilby was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2000 for his discovery of the silicon chip. While silicon chips are essential to almost all computer operations today, a myriad of other devices depend on them as well, including calculators, microwave ovens, automobiles, and VCRs.
What was the environmental significance of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring?
In the book Silent Spring, published in 1962, Rachel Carson, 1907 to 1964, exposed the dangers of pesticides, particularly DDT, to the reproduction of species that prey upon the insects for which the pesticide was intended. Silent Spring raised the public awareness and is considered a pivotal point at the beginning of the environmental movement.
How much water does an average sponge circulate during a day?
A sponge that is 4 inches, 10 centimeters, tall and 0.4 inch, 1 centimeter in diameter pumps about 23 quarts, 22.5 liter, of water through its body in one day. To obtain enough food to grow by 3 ounces, 100 gram. A sponge must filter about 275 gallons, 1,000 kilograms, of seawater.
How does a butterfly differ from a moth?
While these guidelines generally hold true, there are exceptions. Moths have hairy bodies, and most have tiny hooks or bristles linking the forewing to the hindwing. Butterflies do not have either characteristic.
What is the chemical used in watches to make them glow in the dark?
Generally, radioactive paints are used to make watch surfaces visible in the dark. These paints, which do not require activation by an outside light source, will glow for several years. In the past, radium was often the active substance used in luminescent paints for watch faces. However, the practice was discontinued when it was found to emit dangerous gamma rays. The radioactive materials used today give off much lower emissions, which are easily blocked by the glass or plastic covering the watch face. These substances include tritium, krypton-85, promethium-147, and thallium-204.
When did gasoline stations open?
The first service station, or garage, was opened in Bordeaux, France, in December 1895 by a Barrel. It provided overnight parking, repair service, and refills of oil and motor spirit. In April 1897 a parking and refueling establishment Brighton Cycle and Motor Co. opened in Brighton, England. The pump that would be used to eventually dispense gasoline was devised by Silenus Bowser of Fort Wayne, Indiana, in September 1885, it originally dispensed kerosene. 20 years later Bowser manufactured the first self-regulating gasoline pump. In 1912, a Standard Oil of Louisiana superstation opened in Memphis, Tennessee, featuring 13 pumps, a ladies' restroom, and a maid who served ice water to waiting customers. On December 1, 1913, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the Gulf Refining Company opened the first drive-in station as a 24-hour-a-day operation. Only 30 gallons, 114 liters, of gasoline were sold the first day.
How long will fossil fuel reserves last?
Determining how long fossil fuel reserves, the non-renewable sources of energy, will last is dependent on production rates and the rate of consumption. Other factors complicating the determination of how long fossil fuel reserves will last is whether additional supplies will be discovered. The economics of recovery of fossil fuels, and the growth of renewable sources of energy. Different models have been proposed, but researchers are now predicting that oil and gas reserves will last another 35 and 37 years, respectively. Coal reserves are predicted to last 107 years. Based on this model, coal will be the only fossil fuel available after 2042 and would last until 2112.
What is e-cycling?
Cycling is the reuse and recycling of electronic equipment. Donating used electronic equipment for use by others is the environmentally preferred alternative to discarding used electronics. If an electronic device cannot be reused, it should be recycled. The recycling rate for electronic devices is only 18%. With the remaining amount of disposed electronics being discarded in landfills. One of the goals of the Plug Into E-Cycling campaign, a partnership between the EPA and leading consumer electronics manufacturers and retailers, is to increase the recycling rate of electronics to 35%. In 2008, the Plug Into E-Cycling partners recycled 34,000 tons. 30,844 metric tons, of used consumer electronics.
What is meant by an imperfect flower?
An imperfect flower is one that is unisexual, having either stamens, male parts, or pistils, female parts, but not both.
How are coral reefs formed and how fast are they built?
Coral reefs grow only in warm, shallow water. The calcium carbonate skeletons of dead corals serve as a framework, upon which layers of successively younger animals attach themselves. Such accumulations, combined with rising water levels, slowly lead to the formation of reefs that can be hundreds of meters deep and long. The coral animal, or polyp, has a columnar form, its lower end is attached to the hard floor of the reef, while the upper end is free to extend into the water. A whole colony consists of thousands of individuals. There are two kinds of corals, hard and soft, depending on the type of skeleton secreted. The polyps of hard corals deposit around themselves a solid skeleton of calcium carbonate, chalk, so most swimmers see only the skeleton of the coral. The animal is in a cup-like formation into which it withdraws during the daytime. The major reef builder in Florida and Caribbean waters, Montas triannularis. Star coral, requires about 100 years to form a reef just 3 feet, 1 meter, high.
How is senescence defined?
Senescence, from the Latin senex, meaning old, is the process of aging. Physiological changes continue to occur even after complete physical growth is attained at maturity. As people age, the body is less able to and less efficient in adapting to environmental changes. Maintaining homeostasis becomes harder and harder, especially when the body is under stress. Ultimately, death occurs when the combination of stresses cannot be overcome by the body's existing homeostatic mechanisms.
When were microfibers invented?
Microfibers are very fine fibers with a diameter of less than 1 denier. Denier is the term used to describe the diameter or fineness of a fiber. It is the weight in grams of a 9,000 meter, 9,842 yards, length of fiber. Many microfibers are 0.5 to 0.6 denier. As a comparison, microfibers are 100 times finer than human hair and half the diameter of a fine silk fiber. The first microfiber fabric was ultrasuede, TM. Created by Masashi Akamoto in 1970 at Toray Industries in Japan. His colleague, Toyohiko Hakoda, perfected the process to create a soft, supple, stain-resistant fabric.
What is unique about the water lily Victoria amazonica?
T is very big. Found only on the Amazon River. This water lily has leaves that can reach up to 6 feet, 1.8 meters, in diameter. In a single season, a plant will produce 40 to 50 leaves. The leaves are very buoyant, capable of supporting the weight of a small child. Mature leaves may be able to support 100 pounds, 45 kilograms, if evenly distributed on the leaf. The flowers of Victoria amazonica reach up to 12 inches, 30 centimeters, in height. The flowers open at dusk and are only open on 2 successive nights. During the first evening, the flower is white. They close during the day and the next evening the flower has changed its color to a pink or purplish red. Each plant only has one flower at a time. And after the second evening the flower closes up and sinks below the surface of the water.
What are Landsat maps?
They are images of Earth taken at an altitude of 567 miles, 912 kilometers. by an orbiting Landsat satellite, or ERTS, Earth Resources Technology Satellite. The Landsats were originally launched in the 1970s. Rather than cameras, the Landsats use multispectral scanners, which detect visible green and blue wavelengths, and 4 infrared and near-infrared wavelengths. These scanners can detect differences between soil, rock, water, and vegetation, types of vegetation, states of vegetation, e.g., healthy/unhealthy or underwatered/well-watered, and mineral content. The differences are especially accurate when multiple wavelengths are compared using multispectral scanners. Even visible light images have proved useful. Some of the earliest Landsat images showed that some small Pacific islands were up to 10 miles, 16 kilometers, away from their charted positions. The results are displayed in false color maps, where the scanner data is represented in shades of easily distinguishable colors. Usually, infrared is shown as red, red as green, and green as blue. The maps are used by farmers, oil companies, geologists, foresters, foreign governments, and others interested in land management. Each image covers an area approximately 115 square miles, 185 square kilometers. Maps are offered for sale by the United States Geological Survey. Other systems that produce similar images include the French spot satellites, Russian Salyut and Mir manned space stations, and NASA's Airborne Imaging Spectrometer, which senses 128 infrared bands. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratories are developing instruments that will sense 224 bands in infrared, which will be able to detect specific minerals absorbed by plants.
How has plant classification changed over the years?
The earliest classifications of plants were based on whether the plant was considered medicinal or was shown to have other uses. Deri rustica bicato the censor, 234 to 149 BCE. Lists 125 plants and was one of the earliest catalogues of Roman plants. Gaius Plinius Secundus, 23 to 79 CE. Known as Pliny the Elder, wrote Historia Naturalis, which was published in the 1st century. The book was one of the earliest catalogues of significant plants in the ancient world, describing more than 1,000 plants. Plant classification became more complicated as more and more plants were discovered. One of the earliest plant taxonomists was the Italian botanist Cesalpinus, 1519 to 1603. In 1583 he classified more than 1,500 plants according to various attributes, including leaf formation and the presence of seeds or fruit. John Ray, 1627 to 1705, was the first botanist to base plant classification on the presence of multiple similarities and features. His Historia Plantarum Generalis, published between 1686 and 1704, was a detailed classification of more than 18,000 plants. The book included a distinction between monocotyledon and dicotyledon flowering. Plants. The French botanist J.P. de Tournefort, 1656–1708, was the first to characterize genus as a taxonomic rank that falls between the ranks of family and species. De Tournefort's classification system included 9,000 species in 700 genera. The Swedish naturalist Carolus Linnaeus, 1707–1778, published Species Plantarum in 1753. It organized plants into 24 classes based on reproductive features. The Linnaean system of binomial nomenclature remains the most widely used system for classifying plants and animals. It is considered an artificial system since it often does not reflect natural relationships. During the late 18th century, several natural systems of classification were proposed. The French botanist Antoine Laurent de Jussieu, 1686–1758, published Genera Plantarum. The Tome Prodroma Systematis Naturalis Regna Vegetabilis was started in 1824 by the Swiss botanist Augustin Pérème de Candolle, 1778–1841, and completed 50 years later. Another Genera Plantarum was published between 1862 and 1883 by the English botanists George Bentham. 1800–1884, and Sir Joseph Dalton Hooker, 1817–1911.
In plants, a new cell wall forms. What is photosynthesis and why is it important?
Photosynthesis, from the Greek word photo, meaning light, and synthesis, from the Greek word syntythene, which means to put together, is the process by which plants use energy derived from light in order to make food molecules from carbon dioxide and water. Oxygen, O2, is produced as a waste product of this process. Photosynthesis is a dual-staged process with multiple components. Ultimately, photosynthesis is the process that provides food for the entire world. Each year more than 250 billion metric tons of sugar are created through photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a source of food not only for plants, but also all organisms that are not capable of internally producing their own food, including humans.
What is anorexia?
Anorexia simply means a loss of appetite. Anorexia nervosa is a psychological disturbance that is characterized by an intense fear of being fat. It usually affects teenage or young adult women. This persistent fat image, however untrue in reality, leads the patient to self-imposed starvation and emaciation. Extreme thinness, to the point where 1/3 of the body weight is lost. There are many theories on the causes of this disease, which is difficult to treat and can be fatal. Between 5 and 10% of patients hospitalized for anorexia nervosa later die from starvation or suicide. Symptoms include a 25% or greater weight loss, for no organic reason. Coupled with a morbid dread of being fat, an obsession with food, an avoidance of eating, compulsive exercising and restlessness. Binge eating followed by induced vomiting, and/or use of laxatives or diuretics.
What are the largest and smallest aerial spider webs?
The largest aerial webs are spun by the tropical orb weavers of the genus Nephila, which produce webs that measure up to 18.9 feet, 6 meters, in circumference. The smallest webs are produced by the species Glyphosis cottoni. Their webs cover an area of about 0.75 square inch, 4.84 square centimeters.
What are the primary functions of the lymphatic system?
The lymphatic system consists of the lymphatic vessels, lymph, and lymphoid organs. It is responsible for maintaining proper fluid balance in tissues and blood. In addition to its role defending the body against disease-causing agents. The primary functions of the lymphatic system are, 1. To collect the interstitial fluid that consists of excess water and proteins and return it to the blood, 2. To transport lipids and other nutrients that are unable to enter the bloodstream directly, and 3. To protect the body from foreign cells and microorganisms.
Does your heart stop beating when you sneeze?
The heart does not stop when you sneeze. Sneezing, however, does affect the cardiovascular system. It causes a change in pressure inside the chest. This change in pressure affects the blood flow to the heart, which in turn affects the heart's rhythm. Therefore, a sneeze does produce a harmless delay between one heartbeat and the next, often misinterpreted as a skip beat.
What type of diet is recommended for individuals with celiac disease?
A gluten-free diet is the only treatment for individuals with celiac disease. Celiac disease is an autoimmune digestive disease that damages the small intestine and interferes with absorption of nutrients. The villi in the small intestine are damaged or destroyed whenever sufferers of celiac disease eat products that contain gluten. Gluten is found in wheat, rye, and barley. Once the villi are damaged, they are not able to allow nutrients to be absorbed by the bloodstream, leading to malnutrition.
What are bryophytes and where are they found?
Mosses, liverworts, and hornworts, collectively known as bryophytes, are often found in moist environments. However, there are species that inhabit almost all environments. From hot, dry deserts to the coldest regions of Antarctica. They are most noticeable when they grow in a dense mass. They are generally small, compact plants that rarely grow to more than 8 inches, 20 centimeters, tall. They have parts that appear leaf-like, stem-like, and root-like, and lack vascular tissue, xylem and phloem.
How much has internet usage changed in recent years?
According to industry surveys, internet usage has surged, increasing by nearly 400% between 2000 and 2009. Far exceeding earlier estimates that there would be 1 billion users by 2005. Africa and the Middle East have shown the greatest rate of growth.
What are the two forms of stroke?
There are two forms of stroke, ischemic and hemorrhagic. Ischemic stroke is the blockage of a blood vessel that supplies blood to the brain. Ischemic strokes account for 80% of all strokes. Hemorrhagic stroke is bleeding into or around the brain. Hemorrhagic strokes account for 20% of all strokes. The symptoms of stroke appear suddenly and include numbness or weakness, especially on one side of the body. Confusion or trouble speaking or understanding speech, trouble seeing in one or both eyes. Trouble walking, dizziness, or loss of balance or coordination, or severe headache with no known cause. Often more than one of these symptoms will be present, but they all appear suddenly.
When was the first geothermal power plant built?
The first geothermal power station was built in 1904 in Larderello, Italy, by Prince Piero Conti. The prince attached a generator to a natural steam-driven engine to produce enough power to illuminate 5 light bulbs. In 1913 the first geothermal power plant with a capacity of 250 kilowatts was installed.
What is the difference between the cardiovascular system and the circulatory system?
The cardiovascular system refers to the heart, cardio, and blood vessels, vascular. The circulatory system is a more general term encompassing the blood vessels, heart, lymph, and lymph vessels.
What is the largest organ in the human body?
The largest and heaviest human organ is the skin, with a total surface area of about 20 square feet. 1.9 square meters, for an average person, or 25 square feet, 2.3 square meters, for a large person. It weighs 5.6 pounds, 2.7 kilograms, on average, representing 4% of the average weight of the human body. Although generally it is not thought of as an organ, anatomically it is an organ.
How deep does the root system penetrate the soil?
The depth to which the root system penetrates the soil is dependent on moisture, temperature, the composition of the soil, and specific plant. Most of the roots actively absorbing water and minerals. The feeder roots are found in the upper 3 feet, 1 meter, of the soil. The feeder roots of many trees are mainly in the upper 6 inches. 15 centimeters, of the soil, the part of the soil richest in organic matter.
Which bear lives in a tropical rainforest?
The Malayan sun bear, Ursus malayanus, is one of the rarest animals in the tropical forests of Sumatra, the Malay Peninsula, Borneo, Burma, Thailand, and southern China. The smallest bear species, with a length of 3.3 to 4.6 feet, 1 to 1.4 meters, and weighing 60 to 143 pounds, 27 to 65 kilograms, it has a strong, stocky body. Against its black, short fur, it has a characteristic orange-yellow colored crescent across its chest, which according to legend represents the rising sun. With powerful paws having long, curved claws to help it climb trees in the dense forests, it is an expert tree climber. The sun bear tears at tree bark to expose insects, larvae, and the nests of bees and termites. Fruit, coconut palms, and small rodents are also part of its diet. Sleeping and sunbathing during the day, it is active at night. Unusually shy and retiring, cautious, and intelligent. The sun bear is declining in population as its native forests are being destroyed.
What was the first mammal to be successfully cloned?
The first mammal cloned from adult cells was Dolly, NU born 0 and July 5. 1996. Dolly was born in a research facility in Scotland. Ian Wilmut, 1944, led the team of biologists that removed a nucleus from a mammary cell of an adult ewe and transplanted it into an enucleated egg extracted from a second ewe. Electrical pulses were administered to fuse the nucleus with its new host. When the egg began to divide and develop into an embryo, it was transplanted into a surrogate mother ewe. Dolly was the genetic twin of the ewe that donated the mammary cell nucleus. On April 13, 1998, Dolly gave birth to Bonnie the product. of a normal mating between Dolly and a Welsh mountain ram. This event demonstrates that Dolly was a healthy, fertile sheep, able to produce healthy offspring. Dolly was euthanized on February 14, 2003. Because she had severe arthritis and a progressive lung disease that was caused by the retrovirus JSRV.
What is barometric pressure and what does it mean?
Barometric, or atmospheric, pressure is the force exerted on a surface by the weight of the air above that surface. As measured by an instrument called a barometer. Pressure is greater at lower levels because the air's molecules are squeezed under the weight of the air above. So while the average air pressure at sea level is 14.7 pounds per square inch, 1013.53 hectopascals, at 1000 feet, 304 meters, above sea level, the pressure drops to 14.1 pounds per square inch, 972.1 hectopascals, and at 18,000 feet, 5,486 meters. The pressure is 7.3 pounds, 503.32 hectopascals, about half of the figure at sea level. Changes in air pressure bring weather changes. High-pressure areas bring clear skies and fair weather, low-pressure areas bring wet or stormy weather. Areas of very low pressure have serious storms, such as hurricanes.
What is the message attached to the Voyager spacecraft?
Voyager 1, launched September 5, 1977, and Voyager 2, launched August 20, 1977. Were unmanned space probes designed to explore the outer planets and then travel out of the solar system. A gold-coated copper phonograph record containing a message to any possible extraterrestrial civilization that they might encounter is attached to each spacecraft. The record contains both video and audio images of Earth and the civilization that sent this message to the stars. The record begins with 118 pictures. These show Earth's position in the galaxy, a key to the mathematical notation used in other pictures. The Sun, other planets in the solar system, human anatomy and reproduction. Various types of terrain, seashore, desert, mountains, examples of vegetation and animal life. People of both sexes and of all ages and ethnic types engaged in a number of activities, structures. From grass huts to the Taj Mahal to the Sydney Opera House, showing diverse architectural styles. And means of transportation, including roads, bridges, cars, planes, and space vehicles. The pictures are followed by greetings from Jimmy Carter, who was then President of the United States, and Kurt Waldheim, then Secretary General of the United Nations. Brief messages in 54 languages, ranging from ancient Sumerian to English, are included, as is a song of the humpback whale. The next section is a series of sounds common to Earth. These include thunder, rain, wind, fire, barking dogs, footsteps, laughter. Human speech, the cry of an infant, and the sounds of a human heartbeat and human brainwaves. The record concludes with approximately 90 minutes of music, Earth's greatest hits. These musical selections were drawn from a broad spectrum of cultures and include such diverse pieces as a Pygmy Girl's initiation song, bagpipe music from Azerbaijan, the Fifth Symphony, First Movement by Ludwig van Beethoven, and Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. It will be tens or even hundreds of thousands of years before either Voyager comes close to another star, and perhaps the message will never be heard. But it is a sign of humanity's hope to encounter life elsewhere in the universe.
How does conventional medicine differ from complementary and alternative medicine, CAM?
Conventional medicine, also called allopathic medicine, is based on scientific knowledge of the body and uses treatments that are based on scientific research. It is practiced by healthcare practitioners who hold an MD, Doctor of Medicine, or DO, Doctor of Osteopathy. Conventional medicine is also referred to as Western medicine. Complementary and alternative medicine are healthcare systems, practices and products that are generally not considered to be in the mainstream of conventional medicine. There may be some scientific evidence for some CAM therapies, but for most CAM therapies there are still questions that have not been answered through well-designed scientific studies. CAM therapies are often based on the belief that a healthcare provider must treat the whole person, body, mind, and spirit as a unit. Most CAM therapies are less invasive than conventional medicine.
When was the first curbside recycling program established in the United States?
The first municipal-wide curbside recycling program was started in 1974 in University City, Missouri, where city officials designed and distributed a container for collecting newspapers. As of 2008, there were 659 curbside recycling programs serving 59% of the total population in the United States.
Do dogs and cats have good memories?
Dogs do have long-term memories, especially for those whom they love. Cats have a memory for things that are important to their lives. Some cats seem to have extraordinary memories for finding places. Taken away from their homes, they seem able to remember where they live. The key to this homing ability could be a built-in celestial navigation, similar to that used by birds. Or the cat's navigational ability could be attributed to the cat's sensitivity to Earth's magnetic fields. When magnets are attached to cats, their normal navigational skills are disrupted.
At what age does sperm production begin?
Sperm production begins with the onset of puberty, usually between ages 11 to 14 in boys. It continues throughout the life of an adult male. It is estimated that during his lifetime a normal male will produce as many as 300 million sperm per day.
What is the function of various plant nutrients?
Macronutrients: carbon, major component of organic molecules; oxygen, major component of organic molecules; hydrogen, major component of organic molecules; nitrogen, component of amino acids, proteins, nucleotides. Nucleic acids, chlorophyll, coenzymes; potassium, component of enzymes, protein synthesis. Operation of stomata: calcium, component of cell walls, maintenance of membrane structure and permeability, activates some enzymes. Magnesium, component of chlorophyll molecule, activates many enzymes. Phosphorus, component of ADP and ADP. Nucleic acids, phospholipids, several coenzymes; sulfur, components of some amino acids and proteins. Coenzyme A, chlorine, osmosis and ionic balance; iron, chlorophyll synthesis; cytochromes, nitrogenase.